All right, Mr. Brian Hooks, welcome to your first one-on-one with Comedy Hype.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What I was saying earlier, this is about your story,
Okay.
what you overcame, what you've experienced, what you learned. For me, in learning your story, I love the mind state. You know, you came on our platform a few weeks back, maybe a little over a month ago,
Mm.
and you were able to express some things that related to what our company is about. So this conversation should be a really great one, and I want to just go to the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
the very beginning. Um, yeah, what was it like growing up in the Hooks family residence as a kid?
Man, I must say, it was amazing. If you would have asked me as a kid, I don't know if I would have said it was amazing. But, in hindsight, my parents provided an amazing foundation for me to do, achieve, and go wherever I wanted, how I wanted. And so that was a real blessing. And, we grew up, I had moms and pops in the house. My father was an amazing man.
Mm.
Probably, he's been my greatest mentor in life.
What era was that?
That was when I was coming up, when I grew the 80s, I would say. You know what I mean?
So knowing that you had a father and a mother at home, did you notice the impact that was? Because I would assume some of your peers didn't have that same story.
Yeah, and at the time I was unaware. That was my normal. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until I matured and grew up and left for college that I really, really, really sunk in, and I appreciated that I had that, because most of my friends didn't have that. And at the time, it just was what it was because, you're a kid. And so all you're thinking about is what you're thinking about or what you guys are about to do next. So I appreciate that now because I could see with some of my friends who didn't have that and, they got into the trouble that they did. And it's because they didn't have what I have. You know what I mean? We have family members who, weren't as fortunate, that we took in and at times. And so it was, again, at the time, just the norm. But as you grow and mature as an adult, you figure out that way you had an amazing foundation and a great head start when a lot of people aren't born with that.
Yeah. When you got to see how your father expressed love towards your mother, what was that dynamic like?
I mean, he would walk by, slap her on the ass. No, just, it was amazing, man. And again, my parents provided such a great foundation that it wasn't until really I left the nest and began to mature and I look back and I say, wow. You know what I mean? As I start to understand some of the things that some of my friends, peers, or just folks that I don't even know that I read about, hear about, have went through, it's just been such a blessing. And he, at a time when, we weren't rich by any means, but if you would have asked me and my brother and my sister, we would have been like, hell yeah, because they always made sure we had the things we needed. And damn, I'd be damned if we didn't have, almost everything we wanted. And at the time, we just thought it was because we had it that way. Pops is rich, Mom's is rich, but they weren't at all, man. And Pops was going out every day, busting his ass, you know what I mean, up, before the sun comes up, home when the sun is coming down, doing construction, and he did what he had to support his family. And that to me was amazing because he could have lived, a very, fruitful life without having to support us and all our wants and needs. So a lot of fathers, and our parents look at that and, and sometimes they crack under that pressure, and they move towards, where it's easiest. But my father never did. He was there every day doing everything. And I remember even with, sports and stuff. I mean, literally the guy was up before the sun came up, home tired, and he would get home, shower, take us to football practice, baseball practice, soccer practice. My sister and brother, all three of us, Never complained. Never heard him complain once.
How was your grandfather, his father? Did he pick that up from him?
My grandfather, my dad picked cotton, right? So they come from a different era. So, and school wasn't my dad's thing. You know what I mean? He would hit someone in the mouth. It's just, you wanted to avoid the hooks because they will hit you in your mouth if, depending on how the day's going or how you look at them. So I say that to say he wasn't necessarily the student. And my grandfather and grandmother, came from an era to where, it was that big mama era, you know what I mean? To where they were working in the fields, all day and coming home. And even my father, he always used to say it was never an excuse for us not to attain good grades, right? Because he was handling everything that a lot of people have to worry about outside of school. We didn't have to worry about that. So it was no excuses, right? But for him, when he showed up to class and didn't have his work done, it was because, he was going from school out to the fields, pick grapes, pick cotton, coming back home, tired, exhausted from a long day, and then expected to get this work done. So it wasn't like he didn't want to do the work or didn't care to do the work. He was tired. Right. And so you show up the next day. So, life wasn't for him. Get out of school, go home, have a Lunchable and get on your homework. You know what I mean? It was real life after school. So for that, and that was the story for a lot of, African Americans coming up at that time, man. So, but my grandmother and grandfather was always there. They worked hard and, and to say what, that's a great question of what instilled that sense of foundation, you know what I mean, and made my father as solid as he is. I would have to ask him that. I know he served in Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh Trail, and I say that to say that's when there was a lot of craziness. He he never had some of the side effects that a lot of people suffer from being in that. And, so it's been blessed, man. It's been blessed, So there was a lot of, we kids, so we came up and we found trouble here and there, you know what I mean? But we always had an amazing safety net in my mom and dad that we didn't necessarily know was there.
When I hear about the word foundation, I think about if you have a proper foundation that allowed you to now elevate, and you being a youngster have an imagination with that foundation, when did the young Brian start really dreaming and believing in himself?
I think I started, I can't remember a time when I thought something was out of reach, right? Whether I was playing baseball and I was good at baseball, and I always felt that I would go to the pros, right? And so it was never, you know what I mean? And you could call it, just, being naive or whatever, but nothing was ever, I felt, unattainable. So when I shifted from baseball to entertainment, I had no doubt that I would get to where I wanted to be. And so that's something that's just been in me, you know what I mean? And my parents, I would say, their, dreams were probably limited. My dad, like I said, he worked in the fields. You go out, you work, you come home. He made sure that we went to college to get an education so we can get a job and we can be okay. But that wasn't enough for me, right? So I needed more than that, more than doing a job just because so I can get paid and be okay. Somewhere along the way, I figured out that that wasn't enough and I needed to do something that made me happy. And I need to figure out in that bubble of what made me happy, how to provide for myself and my family. Yeah. And there was just never a moment ever to where I ever felt like anything's been unattainable. That said, I've never, said, I want to walk on space or, create an airplane with hydraulics. But if I decided to.
Yeah. In that mode of, the 9-to-5 hustle that a lot of people have become accustomed to, what was your first 9-to-5 or the job you were working before you said, I'm ready to now do something different? What was that?
I think, I worked at Walmart. I worked at gardening section out there, watering them plants and all that good stuff. I worked at the movie theaters. And so when I was working at UA Theaters, I think that's the first time I really, really began to fall in love with the idea of film, entertainment. Where do they do this? How can I get to this? And so it was then, that 9 to 5 to where, at the time it instilled great values in me. You know what I mean? You learn how to be responsible. You learn how to take leadership. You learn how to listen to leadership. And so it gave me a lot of tools that I would need to, progress over my journey. But it also let me know that, that wasn't so much for me. And it's crazy because I, left Bakersfield, California, where I was born and raised so many years ago. And I go back and to see some of those people still working at that Walmart, right? Working at that movie theater. And, they've been trapped inside that bubble. So I don't think they know how much they've been suffocated by being there because it's just become routine. But I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine that being the arc of my life and my journey. So, I had to get out. And thanks to my parents, they afforded me to leave, go to school at Cal State Northridge in Los Angeles area, found myself in the epicenter of entertainment.
What did you go to school for?
I went to school for math, to be a teacher. You know what I mean? I love kids. I love youth. My mom's a teacher, brother's a teacher, sister's a teacher. And so that was always something that, I was big on. And so I was going to study in secondary education, to teach math. And then again, once I was there, I figured out I was in the epicenter of entertainment. Now from Bakersfield, my entertainment was limited to, school talent shows or, showing out in the church, getting a whooping when I got home, you know what I mean? So that was the extent of entertaining. But once I got to Cal State Northridge in LA, I figured out in addition to my classes, I can add another one. With the theater class, add another one, film class, and then added more outside of school. And that seed began to grow. And
So how did you balance the two, the collegiate with the entertainment? Were you ever late for class because of auditions? Did it ever clash?
It didn't. It didn't actually. Well, at a point where, if I had an audition and I needed to miss class, that's just what had to happen, right? And, but you would make it up. It was college. You miss a class, you figure it out, you make it up, you find out, so it wasn't an issue. But I would ultimately get the role of Fat Beach, written and directed by Doug Ellen. And that's when I said, you know what? As long as I'm working, I'll work. And at the point when I stop working and there's no more work, I'll back up with school. So when Fat Beach happened, it was time to go.
Now that's a huge leap when your father sacrificed for you to go the college route. Mm-hmm. What was his reaction to that?
I think they were very uncomfortable with that. They were very uncomfortable. They were very nervous. Growing up in Bakersfield, coming from the background they came from, the idea of, being in movies, being on TV, is like, yeah, okay, just make sure you get your homework done. you gonna be on TV, all right, son. So when it came to that, I think they were very nervous, but the deal was, listen, if as long as you making money and able to support yourself, then we'll support that. But the moment you're not, you need to pick back up and get your schooling. I don't think they ever imagined that it would be, 2-3 decades later to where I've been able to create a foundation to provide for myself and my family. But that's what it was. And so their whole thing with, and at the time, I don't think I probably wouldn't have worded it that way. I just thought they were just strict and old school about stay in school and such. But that was they wanted to know that I would be okay, right? If they're not here one day, is he okay? You know, does he have, you know, the schooling and the education for him to have a job so he's able to provide for himself and be cool? And that's what their push for, and that's what their fear was. And, you know, you chasing these dreams. So as long as it was a business and, you know, they were looking at, you know, the numbers on, you know, some of the things we doing, and they were like, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, school schmooze, son. You know what I mean?
And looking at that, are your parents are still with us?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And looking at what you've accomplished now, like, how do they feel about it? Are they
Oh, I'm my mama's favorite. I'm my mama's
out of
favorite.
how many?
3, older brother and younger sister. No, they love it, and they get shook over and over just, you know, at the idea, again, growing up in Bakersfield, small little country town in the middle of California, for, you know, your son to grow up, be on the big screen, be on a TV show, you know, making these independent films, and then to run into people who appreciate those films, you know what I mean? For people to stop us, you know, when we walk in here or there and like, yo, I'm a fan, I enjoy your work and want to take a picture. I don't think they ever get used to that, you know what I mean? And so it's, you know, it feels good. It feels good like it would for anyone, and they love that, you know, and that's pretty much why I'm my mama's favorite.
Yeah. You mentioned landing Fat Beach, and that I'm guessing was a pivotal moment where it lets you know that it's real.
Yeah.
Like, this thing is real.
Yeah.
What happened? Can you just walk us through, like, the call? Was it an email? Was it an agent? How did you find out you got this role?
You know, it was through Dramalog, which is now Backstage West, and I submitted myself, you know. We would get it at 7-Eleven, you know, had our little headshots and, you know, would mail it out, and I got the call for the audition. And I went in there and auditioned, and it went well, and I was like, yo, that feel good. I think I got that. So 7 auditions later, I finally got the role, which is a lot of auditions to come back to. But, you know, they wanted to be sure I was new. And I got the role, man. And from there, that's when, you know, we were doing a real movie at that. So my first real film job was a leading role. You know what I mean? And so, you know, Fat Beach was Fat Beach, man. But I approached that like, you know, it was scene study at Juilliard. You know what I mean? And, you know, I really grinded that out and made choices, and, you know, where the fool in me met this character and created Darrell, man. But again, I met Doug Ellen, who introduced me to manager at the time. And from there, man, you know, that's when things got real, right? And so Fat Beach was starring in a movie that was distributed theatrically and did okay, but on DVD, it really changed the whole DVD game. You know what I mean? It made a ton of money. And so from there, you know, the other auditions, the bigger auditions began to come, and, you know, the TV and other films. And so it got real.
One thing about, you know, in particular being a, let me say, just entertainer, this whole goal of like wanting Hollywood to embrace you, and blast you everywhere. You just said that the impact of Fat Beach showed on DVDs, and like how were you ever in a mind state of I need to get on? Like, did you feel thirsty coming up?
You know, I didn't really know what I was getting into. This was something I was able to do outside of school. So when I didn't get the role, like, I got math stuff to do anyway. You know what I mean? Like, and it was like that. And so I was always busy with something to do with school until Fat Beach hit. And so then at that point, we're working. So it always was, I think I was naive and didn't understand what I was getting into and what I was chasing, because it is a very difficult path. And it's difficult because it's almost, you know, less than 1% to do with your talent, right? And it's a whole bunch of other stuff of who you know and who you do and who you willing to do and for how long, and all that, you know what I mean? But I didn't know that. I was just grinding it out, doing my thing. And so the goal was always to be as big as you can be, you know, and get the studio stuff and the studio this. But, you know, I hit a point in the road, and it was sort of like, you know, accidentally on purpose, to where, I tell this story all the time, my buddy of mine, Barry Bowles, was in film school at Cal State Northridge, and I was, you know, studying math, but I was doing my acting thing, and it was on the hills of Fat Beach, and he was like, yo, I got like $10,000, man. I want to make this movie, man. You know, you put $3,000 in, and we can make it. And I was like, okay, see, whatever, you know what I mean? Help my man out. And so we did the film, and it was absolutely horrible, but it was 90 minutes, and folks that saw what Fat Beach did on DVD. And so Xenon Entertainment, this mid-level distributor, took the film, they put it out, and that $13,000 film made $800,000. And from there, we had found a niche where we can make these low-budget, modest-budget films, put them out to these mid-level distributors, and create a foundation for ourselves that doesn't depend on anyone, you know, tapping us on the head and saying, okay. And that was sort of accidentally on purpose, because we didn't have a long end-term goal with that. We were just trying to do what we were trying to do. And that sort of changed the trajectory of everything that I was doing.
What made that particular movie a bad movie? It's like, give us...
Oh, in the course of film, you know, beginning, middle, and end, and characters, it was so much that we didn't know as a filmmaker, you know what I mean? But it was funny, right? So that it was able to live. And also there was an appetite out there for content, funny content, raw content, Friday-ish, you know, and this was before Friday. And so people loved it, you know what I mean? And what we found is people love to go and get the Jurassic Parks, the latest Superman, but there was also, that Brian Hooks joint too, he's stupid, right? And so we were just killing it, making so much money independently, straight to DVD. And it was at a time where, you know, that wasn't necessarily considered cool, you know what I mean? It was either you're doing big mainstream movies or you're not. But for me, being business-minded, it was very cool, right? Yeah. So we made Nothing to Lose was an independent film we made for $100,000. It made over $4.2 million. And that one actually changed. Like, Hollywood was like, oh, shit, what if some of these sequels that we're not going to do, we do them and just put them out on DVD with no overhead. And that's when that started. It was a result of Nothing to Lose, the film we did, right? And so the narrative for me shifted to where I can sort of control my own destiny and make my independent films and live that way. Now, that doesn't work for everybody, because a lot of people in this business is ego-driven, and, you know, what they set up to make us believe is success is the studio says yes, and they put you in a movie, and they put you on the poster, and they do a billboard for you, so to speak. And so you'll have people who are so successful, who you will look at and be like, wow, I wish I had that career, I wish I had that life. And they're still unhappy, grinding, trying to get, you know, the head of such and such studios to tap them on the head and say, you know what, you good. And then, you know what I mean? They feel like they arrived, but bro, you arrived a long time ago. So you can't, like, your goal and your end goal and your dreams cannot rely on someone else. You know what I'm saying? Because then you're setting yourself up to failure. If your goal in life is to, you know, hang out with or go on a car ride with Brian Hooks, then I control your destiny. Because you can't ride with me until I tell you can ride. Now, meanwhile, there may be 1,000 cars as nice as Brian, 1,000 people more cool, funnier than Brian, but you stuck on, nah, I gotta ride with Brian. So all these cool people, all these cool cars, all these amazing journeys that you're able to go on, but you didn't trick yourself, or they've tricked you into thinking you're not shit until you ride with Brian. And so you're setting yourself up for failure, right? So you have to be honest with yourself about what do you want? What makes you happy? And for most people, they don't really know. And they think it's, I want to be this and I want to be such and such. But do you really want to make films? You really want to be a comic? You really want to make TV? Because there's a lot of ways to get there without going through the normal channels.
Yeah.
But outside of those channels, people sort of feel like it's not enough. And that's something that people have to deal with. So my goal, you know what I mean, just became, you know, being able to do what I want to do, how I want to do, when I want to do it. And so, yes, when they make a studio film, you know, they might make $10. When I make my independent film, I might make $5, but it's all my $5, right? And so a lot of artists won't trade. They would rather be broke and on a billboard than really have money and not be on a billboard, right? So, you know, I have to be cool with my journey and my lane and who I am and what I'm doing. If I'm cool with that, I'm cool. And it's really not contingent upon what whomever says on Instagram or any other actor or artist. It's like, are you sustaining yourself and able to do and feed your family, and are you having fun? And if you are, then that has to be enough. You know, it can't be contingent upon other people.
Yeah. With that, was that the mind state? Were you in that mind state when Three Strikes came?
When Three Strikes came,
What mind state were you in?
when Three Strikes came, I think I was still pretty young and dumb. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say that I was completely there. And that was still in that space to where I was just enjoying it. Like, I think a lot of people, again, this was something that I was doing outside of school, and you know, and I just feel next, I'm gonna have to go pick up them classes again. But no, but I was always under the mindset, well, you know, it's probably next month I'm gonna have to go and sign up for class again because, you know, but with other people, it was just either this or I'm gonna kill somebody, you know what I'm saying? And for me, it was like, yo, this is great, but there was never an ego attached to what I was doing. I felt blessed to be able to be doing this with these people who I think is cool and look up to. And I think a lot of other actors, you know, they put their ego in the room first. Be like, going on there, check out the space.
Right.
I'll be in there in 5 minutes. And so it's a different type of energy that you have when you're trying to achieve. But for me, I'm from Bakersfield, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was happy to be there. Like, I was like, man, we're on the set, I'm making a movie. This is dope. You know what I'm saying? And that was the extent of it. And I hope that it came out and it was amazing. But if it didn't, I don't know. I tried to do another one. You know what I'm saying?
With that being said, you're coming to have fun. You land a starring role. Hollywood being such a competitive place, very few opportunities when it deals with our black male talents. And here's Brian having this good time and luck is on his side. Did you feel the jealousy, or did you pick it up at all? Because I could just imagine there's somebody really like wanting these opportunities, and here you go.
Yeah. I think I've never really ran in those circles and been a part of those circles, so I can't say I felt it. But, you know, sometimes you do feel an energy, you know what I mean, about where you're at and what you're doing. And I know, you know, you got to understand that any role that you've gotten, there was a whole lot of all your peers was trying to get that role too. And I think it was a little something there ending around that, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it always would, you know, he's not funny, he's not that talented, so on and so forth. You know, even with, you know, Kevin, they do that a lot. Like, oh, he's not that funny, he's that, yeah, well, it's a lot of people who showed up and they laughed really hard. I laughed, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, you know, you can't please everybody, but a lot of that comes from a place of hatred, you know what I mean? Thousands of people is not showing up for somebody because they're not this or that. You know what I mean? They are this and that. It might not be your tea, but there's a lot of other people drinking the tea. And I understood that, man. And, you know, my spirit and my energy, like, I just don't entertain that, man. And so, you know, a lot of times, you know, you may want to take my hand off. It go right over my head. You know what I mean? I don't know you mad. You know, so I've been able to sort of navigate around that because, again, I never felt this necessity to be a part of the Hollywood circles, and therefore I wasn't. I avoided a lot of that nonsense and BS. But you do, you know, as you get roles and things happen, and you do notice you know, you start to get, hey, what's ups and calls from people. You're like, hey, you know, you knew me. What's up? You know what I mean?
So as things start picking up.
Yeah, with little things. So you see, yeah, you know, people watching, and you know, I'm not a dummy, so I know, you know, we've never been friends. You've never extended yourself to me. You know, so I know it's something more there. You know what I mean? For them, other than what
Some
maybe
people,
surface.
from what I could tell, they played a game where you know it's fake love, but you kind of entertain it. Like I see that happen with a lot of our stars who get like they'll blow up and then all of a sudden they're friends with these other celebrities. It's like, well, how did y'all
When y'all meet.
when y'all know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's just a bunch of goofiness. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, and people, you know, people high five, hey, whoa, what, me? And I know they don't support me. You don't support me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you don't support me. And so, again, like, I'm so in tune with who I am and what I'm trying to do that, like, after that moment, like, it don't even make it home, right? You know what I mean? I'm used to that. I expect that from you. And so, and that just goes to just like the goofiness of Hollywood and how fake it can be because everybody's just shucking and jucking and trying to get to the next level, right? And so I sort of judge people on how they treat and view whoever they see to be the least important person in the room, right? And if I see you treat me different than you do that guy or that person over there, then you know what I mean? I don't, not gonna give you the energy to go back and forth with you about it, but you know, I put you in the bucket to where I just keep you in front of me. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you know, I can make a choice to not be around these people. So to confront you or go back and forth, I'm not gonna waste my energy, but it's just a very very goofy space, and it attracts like entertainment and actors. It attracts a certain type of personality that most times lacks a foundation, right? And then they have these things about themselves that they think, you know, the stardom is going to feel, and it's going to make them feel good. But what do we see? We see them A-list stars, and they got a drinking problem. A-list stars, and they got a drug problem. A-list stars, and they kill themselves. And you're like, whoa, what are you know what I mean? Because it just amplifies. Once you blow up, it's going to amplify whoever you are. If you're insecure when you start, you're going to be incredibly insecure once you get to where you're going. If you have a little drug problem, you're going to have a lot of drug problems. If you like to have a drink here and there, you're going to have a drink everywhere. So it doesn't fix or feel anything, but they don't understand that. And then they're at the top wondering why they don't feel good. You know what I mean? And they topple over.
To kind of transition, you would I just want to hit some highlights. Soul Plane would be a moment. Was that before or after Eve?
Soul Plane was Soul Plane was before Eve, after Eve. Soul Plane was after Eve, I believe.
2004.
Yeah. No, that was before Eve. Soul Plane was before Eve. And that was dope because it was so many, people who, you know what I mean, I was a fan of on there. Monique, Snoop, like everybody was in that. Everybody in that. So it was a big deal for me to be able to be a part of that. And it was fun. It was fun, man. D.L. Hewley. And I remember a conversation, DL, to go back to the independence, he was like, B, let me holler at you. He said, man, he's like, so I'm trying to, looking to do and produce my own stuff and do my own films and so on and so forth. So I took a meeting, with Walmart at the time. And he said, and they're saying, we want to make independent films. We want to make these films, we want to put them out, we want to do such and such, but, we want to, make them with filmmakers who so on and so forth. And so he said, I'm throwing out all these names, Spike Lee, this, that, who they want to work with. And they just said, no, we're thinking more like the ones that Brian Hooks does.
Wow.
And he was like, wow. You know what I mean? Because he's, throwing out all these names of who, he considered to be, big filmmakers, big names, big so on and so forth. But they said no, like the Brian Hooks guy, because Walmart was probably the biggest in store. So they had seen the numbers and the effect of these independent films that I were doing and how well they were doing. So it just goes to speak to, the independence and creating a lane for yourself and, and feeding that lane. But that was one of the conversations I remember for Soul Plane, because it was also an aha moment for myself. So however I viewed myself and what I was doing, it helped me to understand even more about the conversations that were being had that never got to me. You know what I mean? About how people were looking at what I was doing. So maybe let me dig in some more and have a plan to sort of, scale what I'm doing. But Soul Plane every day, man, showing up, acting the fool some more. It was a real good time.
So Soul Plane is considered kind of like not a good movie, but it's a classic in the streets, and it has everyone that we love. How did you view it going into
I
it?
think Soul Plane is a good movie, bro. Like, I disagree 1,000. I think it just hit at a time. It was like, it was it was just at a time where, it just caught that, we need to see Black people differently. And so it just got caught up in that wave and just got that bad whatever, and it just sort of spiraled. And then the movie came out on DVD like 6-7 months before. But man, I disagree, man. That was funny. And then, people have to understand, like, entertainment is entertainment. It's either for you or not. So everything is not going to be about, this perfect, it's conflict. Films are, driven by conflict. Something going wrong, everything going wrong, somebody not such and such. And so every film is like that. And if it's not for you, turn it off. But you look at what they did with the Naked Guns. Those were, white folks acting crazy characters. And this was, sort of an urban version of that. And if it's not for you, fine. But for everybody to jump out and speak out and say, oh, it's this, it's that, I think it just, it's just a bunch of things lined up to work against that movie.
How does that feel? Because, I'm on the critic side of things. So we put out opinions, good and bad. But from a talent perspective, connected to a project, how does that feel when you feel like, man, that was cool, I had a good time, but then now it comes out and people are like, that was trash?
Yeah, yeah. As an artist, you always feel that. Anybody tell you like, yeah, I don't care what they think, like, bruh, knock it off. Like, now, did you go jump off a bridge? No, but you look and you just like, yo, what you mean? What you mean? It was coon. You know what I'm saying? So you always care, but you got to chalk it up. We create things that we want everyone to love. Now, what an artist needs to understand, like, everybody ain't gonna love everything. It's just not gonna happen. But it's just the way humans are built. You're always focusing on, it could be a million people who love it. You're gonna be focused on that one person who doesn't, and that's just what it is, And a lot, I don't take it personal. You gotta understand that, like, everything is not everybody's cup of tea. But yeah, but you read and when you see it, you're like, you ain't making it for somebody to say, oh, that was trash. Like, oh, it was trash, but it is what it is. And you can't really, you just have to take it with a grain of salt, you know what I mean? And get up to bat again. And it's part of the game. It's part of what we do. You put yourself out there. There's a high reward attached to what we do. And then things like that come with, it comes with other things. And, the criticism and putting yourself out there is part of it.
Yeah. A notion about, I'm trying to get my thoughts together. When I think about this early investment of yourself, you start having this self-belief. it gives you a certain edge of how you maybe even behave in the entertainment space in regards of like being confident about what you can do, not being thirsty for
Right.
opportunities. Do you think that started kind of hindering your position and opportunities that would come because you didn't seem as thirsty?
Absolutely, 1000%. Because Hollywood wants you to be thirsty. Again, I want you to hop on one foot. I want you to follow me around. I want you to call me a couple of times. I see you calling. I want you to call some more. And I never really had that. Like, I couldn't pretend to be that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't pretend to be. I've never, I can't. I just gotta be me at the end of the day. It's uncomfortable to not be me, right? Like, I don't drink, I don't smoke. When I'm in a party and it's 2 a.m, I know I'm in a party, there's loud music, and it's 2 a.m, right? And when you're drunk, you might not know, you're like, yeah, you're like, no, it's 2, right? 20 minutes from the house. So I'm not good at pretending to be who I'm not. But if I was willing to follow around and, pretend like you're the best homie, and in particular, nothing nothing comes to mind in particular, man. But again, this, networking is a big part of this business. And sometimes the networking is, a party that you don't want to be at, right? Or, a group of people who you don't like. And so it's not always we're going to this function and it's going to be a bunch of professionals and we're going to chop it up and whatever. It's like, come on over, man. Everybody gonna do coke off of Eddie's belly. Like, who? Eddie? No, man, I'm not, I don't want to do that. Like, soda? No, man, knock it off right. Like, so it's just a bunch of stuff that if you're willing to pretend to be, who you're not, you can go far, bro. Like, you can go far. Seriously, you can go far, you can go far fast, right? If I'm willing to do anything, what I mean? Anything y'all want to do, anything you want me to do, you're going to be just fine. And there's a lot of people who have done that, you know what I mean? And they feel it. They feel it, you know what I mean? Someone who doesn't know may not be able to see it, but, look in people's eyes, man. Look in people's eyes when you see, go on their Instagram, look at their pictures they post, look in their eyes, right? And see how you feel. Because what you feel will reflect in their eyes, and you can never hide how you feeling. Your eyes don't lie. And so you look at some of these pictures when, they might be doing something cool, but them eyes like, nah, bro, you going through it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not happy.
Emptiness.
Yeah. And that's the telltale, man. So yes, doing more of that, kissing up and chasing, and definitely great for, making it, to wherever, you might be trying to go. But hey, man, come on, man.
When I think about 3 Strikes with you on the cover, center cover, presented as if like, this is the next guy. This is the next star. He's gonna like, after that, what kind of, were you still on a roll, or did things kind of transition, slow down? When did you notice things slowed down for you in this space in terms of being in front of the camera?
I think that's the thing for me. I didn't notice because I was doing my own thing. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, you know what I mean? Because the higher my stock with studios and mainstream films, the higher my stock is with my independent films. So I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I was focused on what I do, so I didn't notice, right? It's because I was doing what I do. Now, the audience in, Willacoochee, Georgia was like, yo, what the 3 Strikes dude, man? Like, I thought, you know what I'm saying? And so he noticed, but I didn't notice. And I should have put more emphasis on balancing that even if this is my goal as a business person, because this raised my stock, but that's not where I was at that time. And then I look back and, you know, and then folks will say, man, where you been? What you been doing, man? I haven't seen you. And I'm like, yo, I did 3 films and I made a lot of money doing them. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, nah, bruh. We want to see you, man. Man, I need to see you. And so, and that's just something, that's just part of the journey and part of the learning experience, man. But, and again, and it's often that's attributed also to, are you hanging out? Are you out there? Are you in the circles? Are, you partying? Because at the end of the day, man, like for you, if me and, you're going to give your friend or someone you hang out and run around with a job with you before you are a stranger.
Right.
Right? You know what I mean? You guys work together. So if something came up and there's some next level stuff, or they said we need one more person, you're going to choose someone who you hang with and who you know. You're not going to choose John Doe who you've never met. So when they're doing these projects and they're like, so should I choose John Doe or Brian? And John Doe I run with all the time. Well, I'm choosing John Doe, right? And so that's not confusing to me. Like, people work with and help people who they know in their circle and their friends. And I was in none of those circles, you know what I mean? So, if it were like, if it was folks who I vibe with, then great. But again, I'm not going somewhere and pretending to be somebody I'm not, 2.5 hours just to appease anyone or whatever.
Couple more questions. As far as Eve would be a moment in your career as well. Did that hit at the right time for you? How did that impact maybe what you were doing at that current moment?
That's the great thing about being independent and me sort of steering my own ship. There was never a conflict because I was in control of the independent things I was doing. So if something came up, I could stop, go do that, and then start back or work around that schedule because I make the other schedule. But Eve, man, that was an amazing time. And, and again, like I said before, that was when I was making a ton of money for just like showing up and showing out, bro. And we would go over to that Gower lot and I was put my PlayStation on and I would be playing games and shooting this shit for like, if we were there 10 hours, I'd be shooting this shit for maybe 8.5 of them, and we worked 1.5. So it was an amazing time, and that, I don't think I was comfortable. And again, I should have done more to leverage that exposure towards, my independent and the things I was doing, but I was comfortable. And I was growing, and it was part of the journey and learning. But Eve hit at an amazing time, and it was a great 3 years.
Yeah, on the show we would you would be seen on screen with Natalie Desselle Reed. What kind of talent was she to work with?
She was amazing, man. And I don't just say this, Natalie passed recently, and I don't just say that because she passed or whatever, but she was different. She was extremely, extremely, extremely talented. And one of the things I used to say with Natalie is if she would have did stand up, she would have shut the world down, because Natalie could talk about eating a sandwich and it would be hilarious because she's just an amazingly funny person. Funny person, man. And Natalie you would come and her topics be so off base and inappropriate, and she didn't care. You know what I mean? She would go take a shit, and then she would want to come back and tell you about how it went. Like, you know what I'm saying? She's like, oh my God, y'all. Do you ever, because when I was just in there in the bathroom, do you ever, like when your bowels start to turn, like, like, Natalie, that's inappropriate. Like, we close, but we ain't that close. But nothing was off limits with Nat. Whatever she wanted to talk about, and anybody who know Nat will tell you that. Like, Nat was off the chain, man. But she was amazing. It was so sad to lose her. None of us knew she was sick. And her husband, Lenny, called me the day before, and he was like, yo, Nat's not doing well. the doctors had said that we're gonna lose her. And it just threw me off. It just threw me off. That he had called and I'd missed the call and I'd called back, but I assumed it was Natalie. And when he picked up, I knew it was bad. You know what I mean? Just his whole tone from hello was just bad. And he said that she's sick and we don't know. And I'm just like, well, can I come see her right now? And Nat had told him, she don't want nobody seeing her like this. Don't call them, and so on and so forth. So I could tell he was struggling and battling with that, but he just said, come on over. And so I drove straight there to her place, and I went in and I just wasn't ready. You know what I mean? I wasn't ready for what I expected, and it was just so heavy. And she was just so, she was just not in a good place. And it was just hard to recognize her and see her like that. And so I sat there with her a while, and she definitely knew I was in the room, even though she wasn't speaking. And Natalie was always going, always talking, and it was crazy because I could see her making some of her gestures that she do with her eyes. It was just her eyes, you know what I mean? Because she was just so weak. And it was just sort of, a crazy moment. And it was funny. I was there for maybe 30, 40 minutes. And then she ain't said nothing the whole time. And so I said, Nat, you want me to go and let you rest? And the Negro said, yeah. I said, oh, this thing. She ain't said nothing the whole time. I said, Nat, you ready for me to leave? Yes, please. And I was like, boy. So, and I left. And then I think he called me that next day at like 8 a.m. and said she had passed on. So it's just way too soon. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense.
I think, people viewed her story kind of as another like talent that was just great, that was overlooked, or the industry didn't like fully get behind, because I would say there's parallels with her journey in terms of when she was in Baps next to Holly Berry. You're on the cover of Three Strikes. It's like, what is going on with this game of where they'll build these stars, but they won't really, or they'll use these stars maybe, and they won't fully like see them through the door.
Yeah, and I think, and if and this is not to knock anyone who has arrived and anyone who's out there, but at the end of the day, if you're not willing to play their games, be who they want you to be, and do the things outside of the business that they want you to do, you're gonna suffer. And again, it's not to take anything away from anybody out there doing it, but that's just the way it is.
What's a warning, maybe? Because I think there's a lot of young talents that want to be on that cover. Is there a warning or a message to be like, hey, X, Y, Z?
Yeah, it's like if you say you're somewhere and somebody like, can I grab your ass? You should probably leave.
Has that happened?
Not to me, you know what I mean? But the only thing is that wasn't happened to me because I've never put myself in that space. But I know a lot of people have been like, yo, if you let me sleep with you, I'll take you to the top. And these, all people that obviously I can't say, but these are names of people who you know, who do the movies that you like and the TV that you like. And they just straight out tell them like, if you let me do this, if you do this with me, then I'll do this for you.
So this is not rumors, because
it's not rumors.
I typically know how that sounds like.
No, it's not rumors. It's honestly not rumors. And, and that's why, everybody in that Me Too was hitting. Everybody knew it was any day they go get their number called. So it's a lot of people that survived that Me Too movement that didn't get touched, that, they had showed their ass. And, but when you know, because it's blatant. It's not like, it's not like, you sneak or you slip and fall and then you butt naked, you know what I mean, with licorice in your hands. Like, it don't work like that, And then some people, they also, justify it because like, oh, if this person and this person and this person at the party, then who am I to not be at the party, And so, and they wanted so bad, you know what I mean? And they can never find, and they're looking for that, that validation, and you just lose yourself, you know what I mean?
And in terms of what you've already been on the path of, like independence, building your own, producing your own things, is there a battle or struggle when it deals with trying to deal with your own celebrities, black celebrities? Like, do you have any type of frustration that comes up if they like, I want to do your movie? Do you ever get to have those moments of like,
I mean, I can't really even think of anybody who supported me.
I guess, how does that feel? Because you would be an example of what everyone says we should strive for.
Yeah, like a lot of, a lot of, guys came to me. Like, again, it wasn't cool to do independent films at first. And then at a moment, it was like, oh my God, it's cool. You can make your own movies. And a lot of them came to me and said, Brian, how do you do it? And I told them how to do it. And they went on and they never, you know what I mean? They never reached back. They never supported me. They never so on and so forth. But it's just, I don't think people understand the power of us working together. Like, they just don't get that. Like, you know what I mean? Again, most actors and entertainers, they aren't business folks. So they don't understand that. They're just trying to get themselves to a place. So it's disappointing that they don't get that. But at the same time, I understand that they're not cut like I'm cut. And I just started to stay focused on the folks who I do work with and the things that I can control. But, if these guys, like even these comedians, if you go in there and it's just so, as I started doing stand up, it's just so divisive, right? And you know what I mean? And none of them really like each other. And I don't think they understand the power of them all getting together and doing an independent film. Something simple as that. Like, you're so busy trying to whatever in your corner. What if all 12, 24, you like yo, we're going to do an independent film, right? So the reach that you guys have doing that is so great. But I mean, again, their idea of what success is them being picked by the executive to be the next whatever. And so they get lost in that, man, and they miss the whole point. So the fact that these people have never reached sideways, reached up, reached back is it's disappointing, but I just don't have the time to be there because I'm doing so much stuff, you know what I mean? But, and then at the same time, people don't want to, there's this crabs in the barrel, so they don't want to, you don't want someone who's super talented next to you. That's a little scary for them. You know what I mean? Like, I've never had a problem working with anyone, or, I can never see myself feeling that way, but I think I'm really talented. You know what I mean? So maybe, you know what I mean, that's the difference. But, so anybody who, I haven't worked with, that, it's not by accident. Like, they're like, nah, we don't want that around. You know what I mean? And I don't think they're saying that because they think, oh, Brian's not talented. I don't think that's the reason. You know what I mean? So it is what it is, and again, everybody's journey is different, and mine's is as well. And I'm really liking where I'm at and what I'm doing, because it's honestly fulfilling, you know what I mean? And it'll grow, it'll continue to scale, and it'll feel different, it'll hit different, and it'll be greater. There's a lot of actors or whatever who you used to see on film and TV who you don't know. Like, where you at? What you doing? You know what I mean? The difference is with me is I'm doing a whole lot and they ain't doing nothing because they didn't have that foundation of business and independence, right? So when this whole COVID thing, when everybody was sort of waiting for things to start up, I was like, nah, I'm gonna go do a movie. And I went and did a movie. You know what I mean? And it's because of that independent background that I was able to do that. You know what I mean? And some people don't have that. So you see them out here and times are hard and times are rough. You know what I mean? And that's the difference. But you gotta dig in and invest in yourselves. And everyone's not gonna get that. And you can't spend time worrying about why people are doing or not doing X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? You just got to do you.
Last three questions. Validation seems to be something that comes up. Who or what, when we go back home to Bakersfield, what instilled validation in you at an early age to make you not be so thirsty for opportunities?
You know, I don't know if it was one thing, and I honestly don't know. I just know this, my heart and my gut is just, I'm just a very humble person. And it's not something that I tried to be. It just is what it is. I know everything that's came to me has just been a blessing, and I appreciate it. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I've just never known any other way. Right. And so everything that was happening, I celebrate and I'm grateful for. And I'm good at not looking over the fence, you know, worrying about what everybody else got and, you know, disrespecting and not paying attention to the things that I have in my backyard. You know what I'm saying?
Now, the thing that I think is cool is that you've been running your own race. And now in this part of the race, at this checkpoint, we are now trying to reach back to the youth. Do you think like you growing up with that father, mother foundation is something that makes you drawn to be mindful of helping the youth, or where does that passion come from? And can you tell us about what you're currently doing?
Yeah, 1,000%. And the reality is, it's just the playing field isn't always level for everybody, everywhere. And I don't attribute, someone who's went down the wrong path. I don't look at them and be like, man, you should have did better, because I know they had a different head start than mine. I have, sometimes, a kid could be born addicted to crack, right? Imagine starting there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get out the womb and like they have to keep giving you crack just so you will stay alive. You know what I mean? So it's hard to weigh that with my journey. You know what I'm saying? And so I just reached a crossroads to where, again, my path is different than the normal entertainers. I'm like, okay, what else is there? You know what I mean? What can I give back? What can I do? Because I got 3 little ones. You know what I'm saying? And so I ended up joining the Santa Monica Rotary. And the Rotary's model is service over self, period. Service over self. And I learned to give from some of the best at it, with some of the amazing things that they do. And I was visiting a neighboring Rotary, and there was an ex-police chief there as a guest speaker. And he made the comment and said at the age of 3 years old, they can predict with certainty that a child will end up in jail or prison. So I'm waiting, okay, what else, right? Because that can't be the end of that statement, but it was. He said what he said, and it was true. And the reasoning he gave that they're able to predict this is because the geographical area that the child is born and raised in, the number of gangs that the child has to walk by to get to and from school, and whether or not their parents were in jail or prison. So at the age of 3, this child who doesn't know what life is, right? They don't possess an ounce of ill will in their body, just because of the geographical area that they're born into, the arc of their life is limited to death or prison. Mm-hmm. So once I know that, once I see that, once I hear that, and I have the ability to take action and I don't, who am I? So if you ask me the question, Brian, if you have the ability to save this 3-year-old kid's life by offering a program like Left to Bang Entertainment, and intercepting them and providing them with another opportunity, another view of life, would you? Hell yeah, of course I would. And so it was cut and dry, man. So if I can't pitch off 10% of my life to get on a Zoom call and teach these kids filmmaking for an hour and a half on Saturday, or invite them out to the set, or allow them to have another choice other than the sometimes limited options they have, because they're having to choose between bad and worse, with worse paying more money. You know what I mean? And so what the program Left the Bang Entertainment does is we extend the olive branch from the inner city to the Hollywood sets. And I have some of my celebrity friends come on, say what's up to them, answer questions, mentor. I teach them filmmaking. And ultimately, the goal is to arm them with the tools needed so they can provide for themselves and their family. But if nothing else, and they don't fall in love with filmmaking, they fall in love with the idea of, yo, if I can do that, I can do anything. And whatever that anything is for them, we want to mentor and support them and giving them the action steps to get there, man. So like I keep saying, man, you can't go through life just seeing how much stuff you can get. You can't, you know, and there's no other feeling like when you give and expect nothing back. When you just give because, like, the energy and emotion and the feeling you get from that is indescribable, man. And so that's what the program is, and that's why I'm dedicated to make a difference, because given the opportunity for these kids to choose between shooting movies and shooting guns, they would choose movies every time.
Yeah. Just to extend that a little bit, has there been one of your students or a moment that you've seen a direct impact of what you've put in?
So I was walking, and this was, you know, before the program was fully formed. So I'm walking through the Fox Hills Mall. And I think it was around Christmas. I'm trying to get in and out because when I walk down Beverly Hills, I'm regular, but when I'm in Fox Hills, I'm a celebrity. So, you know, and this little kid, he recognizes me and he comes over, he approaches me, and I'm, you know, he's excited. I can see it in his eyes. And so I'm thinking, you know, obviously, you know, he's a fan of my movies or seen something like that. And, you know, and he comes up, he's super excited. He's like, yo, oh my God, man, you changed my life, man. You changed my life. And I was like, okay, he think I'm somebody else. Like, he don't know who I am. I thought he was a fan of my work. But he goes on to say, he's like, you visited my school years ago. It's like, your sister is Mrs. Hooks. And at the time, I was like, okay, he knows exactly who I am, because my sister, who he called her Mrs. Hooks, is actually my sister. And, you know, I visited her class numerous times, as well as a bunch of other classes in different schools. So he knew exactly who it was. And he went on to say, you know, what you said to me that day in the class changed my life. It's because of what you said and the things you told us to do. I've always kept that stored in the back of my head, and it has kept me on the right path. I have a little girl now. I'm working 2 jobs. I'm saving to start my own business. And he said, I've been responsible and kept that pipeline because of what you told me. Now, I can't remember for the life of me what the hell I said to the kid. I have no idea. Like we all gonna blow up if they's like, tell us what you said to the kid. I do not know. But my point is, that's the power of celebrity and Hollywood magic. We have the ability to change lives just by offering a few words of encouragement. And that's what Left the Bang Entertainment is. And it's that moment when this kid held on to it for dear life as something that I, you know, walked out and a week, month or so later, can't remember what I said, but for him, he carried it with him as a sword and used it, you know what I mean, to move forward. And that's what the program is about. And that's an instant to where, you know, it just further solidified that, you know, I have to do my part.
Yeah. And then my last question, I would label you as someone as unforgotten.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what the future holds, you've already made your mark in a place that millions will never have that opportunity to do so. how do you define unforgotten, being an unforgotten legend? How would you define that?
Unforgotten legend is just someone who made an impact beyond the art, right? Like I see you on the movies on TV, that's cool, but some people, energy, their being translates beyond the movie screen, beyond television, and they sit with you in a certain way. And even though I've never met you, yes, yeah. And it's that, right? And I think that's what an unforgotten legend is. And that's why people approach me in a different way when they know. And it's a different energy and it's a different spirit. And I think it's because that's consistent with who I am, right? And I think when you're not genuine and your art doesn't come from that special, that real place, then you don't really connect with audience and folks like that. And so I do think, the unforgotten is what it is because, it's just that energy that transcends through the screen because I think, the universe is working with me and all that I do, and so, my journey has been amazing and people, as you said, the millions of people, often say like, oh, why do you think, or how didn't you, such and such, or get to the such and such, or do this, that, and the other. But I'm looking at the other people who are like, wow, those millions of people you talk about, like, yo, what you've done has been amazing. Yo, I wish that I could such and such. And so again, instead of me looking over the gate in somebody else's backyard, I'm respecting all that I've been afforded here in my backyard, right? People ask me, you've been offended you never did the biggest films, but they never asked me, how much money did you make and how much of a business was it for you to do those independent films like you did, right? So maybe they're asking the wrong questions, you know what I mean? And so again, it's being appreciative and understanding and respecting, but the difference is, the normal artist needs for people to know. I need you to see how much money I've made. I need you to see how cool I am. It's just being cool.